Okay, so we'll be doing a chapter 9 screencast, and in chapter 9, it discusses the Jefferson's presidency and Madison's presidency and what happened after that.
So, after John Adams, Jefferson became president in the election of 1800. Um, Jefferson was a Republican, so he supported a stronger state government and reducing the power of the central government. So, one of the things he did as president, he reduced the size of the military. He repealed the hated excise taxes during Hamilton's programs. He also eliminated a number of federal jobs because he believed most of these were unnecessary. Of course, yeah. So, um, his first 4 years of presidency, it was pretty good, and one of the major achievements he had was the Louisiana Purchase.
So the Louisiana Purchase, okay, so Napoleon, was, as you guys all know, was a leader of the French, and he needed money for France for the war. So he sold the Louisiana Territory, and Jefferson bought that for $50 million, and that was beneficial for the United States because it doubled the size of the United States. Also, by purchasing the Louisiana Territory, the U.S. was able to gain full control of Fort New Orleans. It was definitely important because since they were able to get a control of the Port of New Orleans, they were able to make better trades. However, the Federalists, um, it was constitutionally questioned because Thomas Jefferson was a strict constructionist, and in the Constitution, it doesn't state that like the president can buy the land, but nobody really cared because it doubled the size of the United States.
Okay, so just before Jefferson became president, Adams set up these last-minute midnight appointments just hours before he left office to appoint Federalists into government positions. But Jefferson refused to give him these positions, so Marbury, one of the midnight appointments, took it to the Supreme Court. Under the Judiciary Act, Marshall said Marbury should get his commission. However, the Judiciary Act was declared unconstitutional because it gave the Supreme Court more power than the Constitution intended to have. Although the Judiciary Act was declared unconstitutional, Marshall set the precedent that gave the Supreme Court the right to declare a law unconstitutional. While Marshall was the Chief Justice, many of the Supreme Court trials set how the Constitution would act for years to come. Several important court cases include the Fletcher versus Peck, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, McCulloch versus Maryland, and the Gibbons versus Ogden. In these cases, the Supreme Court upheld the sanctity of contracts and the higher power of federal government over state government.
During Jefferson's second term of presidency, foreign dispute occurred because of the Napoleonic Wars between France and Britain. Both sides attacked neutral American ships and impressed American sailors, which is forcibly making sailors to fight in their navy. In response, both Jefferson and later, when Madison became president, passed economic laws to stop and persuade both nations from being aggressive towards neutral America. So Jefferson passed the Embargo Act of 1807, which prohibited American merchant ships from sailing to any foreign port. Jefferson hoped that the British would stop violating the rights of neutral nations rather than lose United States trade. This failed because Britain could trade with their other colonies like Africa or India, and so it only affected the American merchants. So here's a political cartoon showing that this is a very famous political cartoon showing how the people responded to the embargo of 1807. They believed Jefferson was holding back these American merchants from doing what they thought they deserved to trade and make money and all that. So later on, when Madison became president, he passed two major acts, which was the Non-Intercourse Act of 1809 and Makin's Bill number 2 of 1810. So in the Non-Intercourse Act, it allowed Americans to trade with all nations except Britain and France because they were the aggressors. And later on, a year later in Makin's Bill, it said that the U.S. could trade with either Britain or France as long as Britain or France formally agreed to respect the U.S. neutral rights at sea, and then the United States would stop trading with the other act. So if France decided to agree to respect U.S. neutral rights, then United States would stop trading with Britain. So Macon's Bill number 2 was a failure because Napoleon claimed to agree to Macon's Bill, but however, the moment U.S. started trading with France and not trading with Britain, he continued to allow French armies to impress American sailors and seize American merchant ships, despite him pledging not to do so.
So the Warhawks were basically a group of young Republicans, and it was led by Henry Clay of Kentucky and John C. Calhoun of South Carolina. The Warhawk congressman argued that war with Britain would be the only way to defend American honor, gain Canada, and destroy Native Americans' resistance on the frontier. So the Warhawks were called the Warhawks because of their eagerness for war with Britain. Mr. Madison's War. So it was called the Mr. Madison's War because it was known as the Mr. Madison's War because some people that were against the war viewed it as only President Madison wanted it and the Warhawks, and Federalist politicians and old Republicans or the Quids were against the war because after the repeal of Embargo Acts, they were making sizable profits from the European War and viewed imprisonment as merely a minor inconvenience. Also, the Federalist politicians viewed the war as a Republican scheme to conquer Canada and Florida, with the ultimate aim of increasing Republican voting strength. And old Republicans or the Quids criticized the war because it violated the classic Republican commitment to limited federal power and to the maintenance of peace.